What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. Surprise, surprise, we have a great panel this week, as always. So joining us in the special chair, you know his work on heavy.com. He is a combat sports correspondent there. Let's welcome Kelsey McCarson to the show for the first time. What's up, Kelsey? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm glad to be in the special chair and glad to be unleashed.
Absolutely. I like the tie-in on the title. Yeah. This guy's coming back. I like this.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and introduce the jack of all trades who has mastered them all. He is the senior editor of Sherdog.com, the homie Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing real well. The only trade I mastered this week was getting called out on Twitter by Campbell McLaren, for being on the take. But hey, that's just another week in these streets.
And Ben, I'm a little upset with you that you ain't been sharing your dirty journalist money with me, but that's an old other story.
On that.
Yeah, like come on, I'm trying to get on this racket too. All right, and of course, every week the panel is anchored by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of Sherdog.com, my good friend Jay Petrie. Jay, what's going on?
UFC 262 was a really interesting event. In a lot of reasons. For some reason, it had the really big fight feel like when you look at Oliveira Chandler, you're like, ooh, this can be really, really fun. But it didn't have that blockbuster, the internet's going on fire. This kind of felt almost like a love letter to fight fans more than a big old blowout event. And I say that knowing some of the fights that were scheduled on this card. There's a couple things I want to drop here before I call a weird audible I'm going to do here. The stat of the week. The stat of the week, of course, is Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira, obviously, because Charles Oliveira put him away in the second round with strikes, which, by the way, that was surprising. I was very surprised, Mr. Falcons. But 17. Charles Oliveira has finished 17 opponents in the UFC. That's a record. That's more than anybody. Anderson Silva. You think of all the fighters that have ever competed in the octagon. Charles Oliveira is the king of finishes in the UFC. And that's crazy. And the other thing I wanted to do to go a little off script, we had not one, but two members of the panel, which way? There we go, that were in the arena for UFC 262. So before we talk about the event, what Ben and Kelsey, at the event, at the arena, there was a lot of odd things going on. Obviously, it was a full crowd, full capacity. What are some things that you noticed or observed at the event that we wouldn't have seen on TV? Like, was there behind the scenes stuff? Was there anything crazy that happened? I mean, tell us about your experience. I'm curious about it.
Well, funny thing is, you had a better seat for some of the crazy things than we did. I understand that on TV, Ronaldo Jacare's arm breaking was audible.
Oh yes.
We had to learn about it the old-fashioned way, watching it on loop on every screen in the arena, for 15 minutes straight, to the point where I was just looking down at the floor because I there was no other place I could look without seeing that nasty ass broken arm. There was a fight in the stands.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because which fight was it? Was it maybe Venata versus Grundy?
It was pretty early.
Yeah,
but it was right towards the end of the round. And they clearly thought that the crowd was going nuts for their awesome fight, but it totally wasn't. It was a fight happening in the stands. Anytime you see that telltale ring of cell phone camera lights around some random place in the stands, and you hear a cheer go up, then you know it's a fight.
It's a pretty sloppy fight too. I did see the Twitter video of that.
It wasn't like the baseball fight where that guy cold cocked that guy, but it was. You're right, Duffy. You're exactly right. It was right after the first round of Venata Grundy, because I wrote about it in my play-by-play that the crowd gets so amped up by the first round of brawl erupts in the stands. So Kelsey, give me some media feel from that
event. Something that I don't know if you know. Maybe you do watch on TV, but the only people that were wearing masks there were the people in the media section. So the story I make up, and maybe this is wrong, but I like to think that Dana White did that on purpose. He knew nobody else was going to wear a mask, and he did that to get back at us for all the stuff that a lot of the media said about what the UFC was doing when they kept moving forward with shows. I know that he's pretty petty like that, and I don't know. It's kind of a thing that he likes to do. I think that would be hilarious if he did that. Even though I was suffering over there with a mask on, I still think it was important to wear it. But still, how effective is my mask if 18,000 people around me are not wearing masks.
Yeah, but let's also point out that not everyone in the media section was wearing a mask, because I did spot one Ben Duffy maskless on television there for a second.
Dude, I kept forgetting because I would take like a mint or like a drink of my water and like forget to put it back on, and then like I would see myself in the screens like, oh shit. I have become that which I once despised. I've fallen from grace.
You got caught up in the COVID, man. You got to feel the spirit. Yeah. So, all right, but let's keep things pushing. And by the way, I did notice at the press conference you had the iFox with Juice mask on. Yeah. So shout out to the homie Juice.
I was gonna wear a mask, an iFox with Juice mask, because Sherdog wouldn't give me no free mask. Man. That's my Brock Lesnar promo right there.
I'll pay you nothing.
Yeah, Sherdog don't pay very well. All right, so let's keep it pushing here. UFC 262 finally concluded the Khabib era of the lightweight championship. Now one Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira has the undisputed strap. The division has officially moved on. But the question I want to pose to you fellas is, do you think the UFC is happy about that? Was Charles Oliveira the guy that the promotion wants to see with that belt right now?
I'll jump in. Probably not. I mean, there's some wins and some losses on both sides here. It's not like, a really lopsided scenario. As Kelsey pointed out a minute ago, Dana White is capable of pettiness. But that pettiness normally does take a backseat to straightforward business considerations. He's willing to be petty up until the point that it really impacts the bottom line. Like when Chandler debuted in the UFC against Dan Hooker and they announced him as the former Bellator champ, that was absolutely because they thought he was going to lose to Hooker. There, you get your high price free agent and you prove that the Bellator guy never belonged in the UFC.
Yeah.
Once he destroyed Hooker and they're like, oh man, he's might fight for a title and it might be against a guy who has proven himself capable of losing at any given moment. Then they're like, well, what are the upsides to Chandler being our champ? He is he's a charismatic figure. Like outside the cage, I find a lot of things about him problematic, but in terms of a post-fight interview in the cage, at the table, at the presser, like he's about as good a product as the UFC has in that division. And I think they probably saw the upsides to it. And, on the flip side of it, I love Oliveira as a fan. Like he is a hardcore fan's delight. That a lot of the same feel that I got from Jorge Masvidal having his big year in 2019. But he doesn't speak English. He's kind of weird. He looks like a Bond villain. Like, I think the UFC probably would slightly have preferred that Chandler won it.
Yeah, I'll agree with your point, man. I think that they probably wanted Michael Chandler to win. You could just tell by the way that they were Dana White. You can usually tell who he kind of wants to win by the way he talks at press conferences. You could tell before Dustin Poirier fought Conor McGregor, he clearly thought Conor McGregor was going to win. He clearly wanted Conor McGregor to win because it's better for his bottom line. But Dana White and the UFC are incredibly savvy people, and they're good about when they go into situations knowing that they can really win either way, right? Because, yeah, your guy that you were kind of leaning towards did not win the fight. But, hey, you did get this UFC guy to knock out this three-time Bellator champion, this basically homegrown UFC guy who's been in the division for years, who all of a sudden is on an incredible tear. And now, I mean, what I was thinking was like, wow, this guy's on such a great tear. He's got all these UFC records. He looks great in all phases. And now I know after watching this fight, man, this guy, you can be whooping this guy and he can come back and beat a high-level person. This guy can make a lot of good fights against the rest of the star-studded division. And I think that, to Dana White, is the most important thing. Making those fights and putting them in fights where he wins either way, whoever wins.
Yeah, I'm picking up a lot of what you're putting down there, Kels. I feel like Chandler was the obvious option from the whole UFC promotional push angle. Like, they can easily do the whole all-American narrative. I mean, hell, they used a guy for Black History Month because that's weird. But clearly, the guy, they were really wanting him to be some sort of a success. It's a weird situation they found themselves, because I looked at this fight like a homegrown versus homegrown. because Charles Oliveira basically grew up in the UFC. You know, his first fight, he was 20, and now he's considerably older now. Meanwhile, Michael Chandler is one of probably in the top 3. He's in that club of the grew up in Bellator guys. So this was kind of that moment, that watershed. Okay, which is who can win? This is kind of what the UFC wanted. But I will notice something. Do you remember when Chandler fought Hooker? He was the former Bellator champion. When Michael Chandler fought Charles Oliveira, do you remember the word Bellator coming out of Bruce Buffer's mouth? Because I don't.
Yep.
And that was very noticeable. That it was to have put it. Here's why I think the UFC wanted Chandler to win the fight. Because they didn't say Bellator champion. Because they thought that Chandler was going to knock out Oliveira. I mean, I'll be straightforward about it. I did too. I thought Chandler was going to get in there. He just had that kind of power that makes people go, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I didn't realize he hit that hard. By not introducing him as the former Bellator champion, that was the ultimate Chandler's going to win this fight, according to the UFC kind of moment that I felt.
And on top of that too, the level of promotion he was receiving. Oh, yeah. If you watched any of the pre-fight materials,
oh my God,
Charles Oliveira was a footnote. You know, to the point where a lot of people were calling this like Nunez Rousey vibes. Like it was that level of just, there's another person that's going to be fighting too. And also like the whole thing about Michael Chandler. I mean, since he got signed to the UFC, he has been a prominent face, whether he is booked to fight or not. And when we can run down the list, I mean, he's the first person since I believe CM Punk to have his signing announced on a pay-per-view where he's interviewed on camera. Then he immediately was put in as a replacement for the Khabib Gaethje fight, and there was a lot of media around him regarding that. Then, of course, they tried to pass him off as a civil rights leader in February. And he's been at so many fights, and the camera's always going to him, and he's got all these interviews and stuff. They clearly have a push toward Michael Chandler, and not announcing that he's a Bellator fighter at this moment sounds like, this is the ultimate stamp of UFC approval, because let's not did they ever announce Eddie Alvarez as a former Bellator champion when he had the belt or when he was about to fight for the belt? No,
I don't think so.
At all. And this was someone who very publicly also was kind of grown out of Bellator system, and then had a very, very public nasty dispute between the UFC and Bellator, where both promotions were literally fighting for his services in court, and they still didn't acknowledge the fact that he fought for Bellator once he got over into the roster. So I really think, and then also you could feel the pace of the show different whenever the press conferences and the post-fight interviews and stuff, when you get that translator there, well, that sucks a lot of the energy out of the room, doesn't it? Makes me want to learn Portuguese. So it's so much harder to promote that than to promote, the good-looking, successful champion who clearly is like this figure for racial unity or whatever. The parlor account. But anyway, so I think the UFC very clearly wanted Chandler to win, but hey, it's what happens when people fight each other that are all dangerous. So dangerous things happen.
I mean, all right, just a real quick interjection. It could have been worse for Black History Month. I mean, if we knew now, or if we knew then what we knew now, they probably would have led with Katlyn Chookagian.
She'll be next February.
So. She's all about a train getting run on the Underground Railroad, according to Twitter.
They're filming her February special as we speak.
Yep, there we go.
So coming soon to Brazzers. All right. Let's keep things pushing here. So Charles Oliveira, now the lightweight champion. What's next for him? Are we feeling the winner of Poirier and McGregor? Is Justin Gaethje a possibility? Who do you think he's going to defend his belt against first?
It really depends. It really depends. And I'm going to step on your toes, Duffy. You know, I have the feeling the UFC is going to make Oliveira wait. And I say that because the next fight of major lightweight import, obviously, is Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 3, which is in July. So you run the timetable, recovery, full camps, all those kinds of things. That means the UFC will 100%. If that's the fight to make, and if somebody comes out impressively, there's no controversy, because if there's some weird, a fluky kind of thing, you better believe they'll run that back for a fourth time, because that's weird. Other than some oddity running into that means what do you say? August, September, October, maybe November. I don't know. Maybe a Thanksgiving card, which that's 6 months on the shelf for a champion who seems like he wants to go all out. Like he seems like he wants to continue, but he doesn't.
Nope. That's what I was about to jump in and say.
Please
it
do.
Helps that he says he doesn't want to fight till December anyway.
Wait, seriously?
I mean, after almost getting knocked out, he shouldn't want to. I mean, he was dangerously close to being finished, so I wouldn't recommend him rushing back in there anyway.
He said at the presser, I want to take some time with my family. I want to go back to Brazil. I want to see how Conor versus Dustin plays out. I'd be fine not fighting again until December, and even hinted that he was maybe trying to hang on to see if they would open shows in Brazil again.
Yeah, and then he also insinuated that featherweight might be an option for him again too. But I think he just wanted to hear his own voice, because that's asinine.
Just to circle back on my disappointment in myself. No, I didn't. The only part of the post-fight presser I watched for Oliveira was him talking about moving to featherweight, and I did see Duffy's question to Chandler, which was not a bad question at all, and it wasn't a leading one or anything like that. It was more that we would feel bad because Chandler just wanted to go home.
Yeah, I'll talk about it in a bit.
Yeah.
The best part of the fight presser, though, was obviously Oliveira standing there with his belt and like this awesome like strut way, and he did it a couple, and then he went over here and did it. Like it was quite the moment, and just like I love it. Took pictures of that. I think it's like, I don't know, that was my favorite part of the whole press conference. I think the person that fights Charles Oliveira next, it depends on who wins the fight. I think if Conor McGregor wins, I think Dana will want to put Conor in that fight, because Conor is his biggest cash cow. I think if Dustin wins the fight, I think Dana appreciates the kind of fighter Dustin is and will give him that opportunity. But both of those guys could theoretically, either one of them winning, they could choose other people to fight, right? I mean, especially Conor. Conor kind of has, I think that Conor would pick the championship belt over any other fight. But, I mean, at the same time, I don't think it's just whatever Dana White says when it comes to Conor McGregor. He threw his weight around a little bit last year when they had their little tiff or whatever, but I do think Dana usually wants to make the biggest fight possible and sell the most pay-per-views and make the most money for the UFC, because he's a great businessman.
Well, you know what? This is very conditional. I mean, first of all, we're not going to hear anything about the next move for Do Bronx until after Conor and Dustin do their thing, regardless of what Oliveira is saying his plans are. The UFC already, I'm sure, had that in mind, because if those two go through a battle and they're on the show for a while, imagine a rematch like Conor and Nate Diaz. Imagine a fight like that, a long, dragged out war, and Justin Gaethje is sitting there real fresh, and he's the last person aside from Khabib to put a belt on. So that just makes a lot of sense. You have Gaethje there as kind of the wild card in case, but of course the UFC would prefer to put Conor in that position. The thing is, though, you don't know what Conor's going to do. He's such a wild card. This is a guy who could go out there, spark Poirier in 30 seconds flat, and then decide that he wants to box the Charlo brothers or something like that. Like, he might just say something crazy like that. That's a distinct possibility. And he'll devote attention to the Paul brothers or something, where it should be toward the lightweight championship. So Gaethje is really about the only guy that I would be like, yeah, this makes all the sense in the world right now. But he's being used as the wild card. So
I want to throw an idea out there, and you guys can poo-poo it all you want. There's a guy, I mean, win streaks, to get a title shot, you either have to be a former champion or you have to have a ridiculous win streak in the UFC. That's basically how it is now. I mean, look at Leon Edwards. I mean, he's fighting. Who's he fighting? Nate Diaz? Wait, that doesn't make sense. Is Nate Diaz ranked? I don't believe so. But we have a guy in Beneil Dariush who's on a 7-fight win streak now after when Charles Oliveira beat Tony Ferguson. It looked like the kind of thing, okay, Charles Oliveira can do that, but I don't think everybody will be able to follow that specific game plan because he's so dangerous as a grappler that even when he's on top and Tony goes for, defensive grappling moves or tries to sit down on his back against the cage and throw up a Darce choke, because what? That's a Tony Ferguson thing. But Dariush is on a 7-fight win streak. Would it behoove the UFC to get a quick title fight, like a July, like throw that on the July card and throw on Oliveira versus Dariush, get a defense, and then move on? Or is Dariush not even in the picture yet?
Well, Dariush doesn't want to fight right away either. I mean, he wants to take time off as well. I mean, depends on how much money they throw at him, which I can't believe Dariush is going to command, but so much money compared to the UFC. That's sort of what I'm thinking here, man. Dariush definitely deserves to be in the conversation right now, but no, he's not there, man. When you've got, let's just briefly looking at the rankings here: Poirier, Gaethje, Conor more deserving. No, not more deserving, but more likely. RDA still there. Dariush belongs in the conversation, but it's a very crowded field.
Like, I just have some feelings about this because Gaethje lost his last fight. Dariush has won his last 7. Like, I understand there's that you gotta kind of open the door to get into that elite logjam of contenders, but it feels like from any sort of, if we're gonna have any sort of legitimacy, thumping Tony Ferguson should at least get you that, so you're in the conversation, instead of guys who will be on losing streaks or maybe won the like Dos Anjos. He's on a 1-fight win streak back at lightweight. Conor McGregor will be on a 1-fight win streak after having been knocked out violently. Dustin Poirier, he'll be on what, a 2-fight win streak if he gets by Conor again. And it's just a weird thing. Duffy, please help me with this.
Yeah, 3-5 if he gets by Conor. Yeah,
I saw Beneil Dariush on Sunday. He stuck around in town. He was at Fury in a hoodie and flip flops. A few people even asked for a picture with him.
Oh,
can you picture him beating Charles Oliveira?
Yes, in a weird, horrible
Dana
way.
Dana might jump out a window. Like, he would be, and dude, I love Beneil Dariush, but he would be like the most dark horse, unsung, unmarketable champion in the post-tough era of the UFC. It would be ridiculous.
And you know what? A Dariush and Oliveira title fight just sounds grossly unmarketable.
Yeah.
For the UFC, like that's one, unless Oliveira reveals himself to be a Marxist, like there'll be no heat on that fight.
We got to get Muniz on the co-main event, don't we?
Yeah. Like, that's like, if you're gonna do that, you got to stack it with something else. And unfortunately, I mean, these are not the concerns of people who don't make money from the UFC. Like we're unless you guys got Endeavor IPO, you jumped on the IPO or whatever. Like, I didn't buy any Endeavor stock, so I'm not sharing in any of their profits. So I don't really give a damn about their business moves, but this is something to consider when we're thinking about what the next steps are. So, all right, fellas, let's keep things pushing here. I'm going to ask you gentlemen a question. Now, as I ask this question, I suggest you prepare some sea salt, prepare some cracked pepper, prepare some butter, prepare whatever thing you like to flavor it, because I'm going to ask you, how's Taste My Crow? This is where we share something that we got wrong in fight prediction over the past week. Ben, I'll begin with you. How's Taste My Crow?
Oh, well, there's sometimes when I'm eating crow on this show and I'm grouchy about it, and there are other times when I'm kind of happy about it, or I'm at least okay with it. I called the Edson Barboza versus Shane Burgos fight exactly wrong. And I acknowledge that, hey, Shane Burgos is the kind of what Jay would call a face first Boston style striker, even though he's from New York. That once upon a time Edson Barboza would have absolutely put through the wood chipper unless he was good enough to actually, get Barboza on his back foot. And I specifically said I could see Barboza landing one of his absolute classic kill shots on Shane Burgos and it not killing him, just because Barboza had just slipped that enough out of that top gear. And lo and behold, he landed a career highlight kill shot. And to make Edson Barboza's highlight reel at this point put you in some pretty rarefied territory. I mean, it was like a tranq dart because it took Shane Burgos' body about 2 seconds to realize it was no longer receiving any marching orders from like the head. I liked it. It's a small version of what we saw in the main event because Barboza, another guy that always has had a bit of a front runner reputation. So when he won the first round and then Burgos started rolling downhill on him in the second round, I was like, oh, I've seen this movie before. And next thing you know, he just zapped him. Beautiful knockout. Just, again, another one for the reel for Edson Barboza. And I'm fairly happy to be eating some crow. And this is Brazilian crow. So some dude in puffy pants brings it to me on a sword and just like slices it at my table. It's nice.
Just unlimited quantities too. It's the best kind of crow.
Well, because normally a buffet is limited by when you can still stand up and go back over and get more food. But if they bring it to you, shit, I can eat until I'm immobile.
All right, good one there. Kelsey, how's tastes my crow?
So the only crow that I can offer you is this. I don't know if this is crow, but I will tell you this. I don't know what it is about Antonina Shevchenko, but I cannot pick whether she's going to win a fight or even lose a fight. It's like every time I pick her to win, I'm like, oh, well, she's gotten this down now. And maybe I'm like too caught up in her last name. And I listen to Valentina talk about how great she looks. And I'm like, she's going to dominate this fight. No, she's going to beat Andrea. She's got this fight. Anyway, she goes, well, it's happened the last 5 fights of hers. Every time I pick her to win, she loses. Every time I pick her to lose, I'm like, oh, she's finished. She's too old, right? She's the old Shevchenko. She's not as good as her sister. Then she looks great. So the crow I'm eating is I don't know what to do with her. I don't know if she's a good fighter or not. She basically makes me question my own sanity.
Well done. Very, very well done.
Kelsey gets it.
Yeah, rumor has it actually that her coach / husband so disappointed with her performance that he's been scouting the kids classes for his next bride. So just keep that in mind. Jay, how's Taste My Crow?
So on the broadcast, I'm keeping it together here. On the broadcast, I believe it was someone from his corner or maybe him himself. When Andre Muniz or his representative explained that he thought he was a better grappler than Jacare Souza, I don't usually react to what I hear on the broadcasts, but I audibly and involuntarily went, just no way. Then come on. I've seen the body of work. I've seen all of Jacare. I've seen a lot more of Jacare's grappling competitions than most have because I'm a masochist, I suppose. And I haven't seen a lot from Muniz besides his really, really impressive submissions and chokes and hitting Darce chokes over very substandard competition. What am I supposed to make of a guy? Oh man, that was a sweet Darce choke. Oh wait, that guy was 1-4. Yeah, let's see how that holds up in court. I didn't see anything happening. And I thought, okay, even if Jacare Souza is older, he's 41 years of age, we know he's slowing. And he admits that he's slowing. He's got powerful hands because Muniz probably isn't going to crack his chin. And Jacare, at very worst, the power is the last thing to go. So I thought, Souza's going to walk through this guy. It's not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be, pretty smooth sailing. Yeah, the old man's getting old, but he can still beat this competition. To see Jacare try and slip out the back door, get his arm caught and snapped in half and hear it and feel it. I can hear it. It's Monday night. The snap happened 2 days ago, almost exactly 2 days ago. Actually, about 2 days ago to the moment. I can hear it. I can feel it. I will eat all the crow that I said there's no way in hell that Jacare is going to get submitted. And he got submitted.
Yeah,
that was my lock of the night. that Jacare Souza was going to win this fight hands down, and he got submitted. Move along, please.
Yeah, that was definitely sad to witness right there. My crow tastes particularly flavorful today, courtesy of Matt Schnell. I picked him to win this fight. I mean, this was a custom-made circumstance right here for him to win. A favorable style matchup. He's a bigger guy. This is Rogerio I'm going to screw this up.
Bontorin.
Yes, Bontorin. Yeah. He was moving up in weight, short notice. I mean, this is just rolled out the red carpet for Matt Schnell to have a showcase performance here. Instead, he fights exactly the way he should not in this moment, and allows Bontorin to gain momentum after having a strong first round. He gains momentum, figures him out, figures out the range, figures out the timing, and cruises to a fairly, I think, clear-cut decision, despite I think this had a little trickery on the scorecards, if I'm not mistaken. But the right guy won. Very, very unexpected there. So that's why I'm eating crow this week, in addition to the Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza thing that Ben covered so beautifully. Donis was really upset about that too. So, all right, everyone. So let's move on now to the greatest titled segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. And this is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not, that took place over the past week. Jay, I will begin with you.
Yes.
What's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So one championship held. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going there. The UFC signed a fighter that. So my lock of the night for 262 was that Souza would win that fight. My lock of there's no way in hell this fighter will ever be signed by the UFC was Cris Huggy Bear Barnett. There was no chance. I think he goes by Beast Boy now, but he'll always be Huggy Bear to me. This is a guy who's 5'9", 300 pounds. He's been fighting on circuits like Road FC and IGF, and he's been a fun guy. This is a guy who can do like one-handed cartwheels at 300 pounds, 5'9". Like, he doesn't make sense, and that's okay. He is the perfect get out there, enjoyable, entertaining guy who can fight at super heavyweight. He doesn't really care, but he still has really heavy hands. Like, I think his best win the last few years is Alexander Lungu. Remember Lungu with the big old belly? Like, big old, like, and he knocked this guy clean out, but never had a great strength of schedule. Didn't fight in any promotion worth of. He fought in Ryzen once, and he lost to Baby Fedor. I think that's who he got beat by. But he's never had any noteworthy win, unless you call it like Travis View or like a very young Walt Harris. He's always fallen short to guys like Alex Nicholson, and yet he's on a 6-fight win streak, and he's fighting Ben Rothwell in what may be the heaviest fight in UFC history, because both guys are going to be 266, cutting weight down to get there. And I don't care what happens. It's going to be nonsense, and it's going to be the kind of nonsense that we like. So welcome to the UFC Huggy Bear. What the hell is going on?
As long as we don't get one of those very, very cringy Ben Rothwell post-fight speeches.
I want it. Are you kidding me? I will eat that up like the crow I ate.
The whole Dungeons and Dragons thing, like, no, I'm good, fam. Like,
Vampire Hunters, bro.
All right, Kelsey, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Tell me,
okay,
why you're not surprised?
I am not surprised. Hi, boxing. It's me, Kelsey. Covered you for 10 years. I'm not surprised, boxing world, that I keep getting the same information from the media about, and it's not the media's fault. It's the people behind the scenes. Hey, guess what fight's about to happen? Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Guys, it's happening. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, no, it's not. Now it is really. Tyson Fury just said it. Oh, no, it's not. So, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Tyson Fury says it. It doesn't matter if both promoters say it. There's always something that comes out of left field. Of course, today the latest thing is that Deontay Wilder's arbitrator, I guess, ruled in favor of him. So maybe he gets to get the contractually obligated third fight between him and Tyson Fury. Here's the thing. While all this has happened in boxing, as a long-time boxer, and I love you, boxing, you're my first love. The UFC has card after card after card. MMA in general is just putting on fights and fights and fights. And all we do in boxing, if you like boxing like me, all we do is you read stuff about fights that aren't happening. I'm not surprised.
Fair enough, Ben. What's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment this week?
Oh, a little surprising, a little unsurprising, I guess. Obviously, as we said off the top, I spent last week covering UFC 262 in person. Kelsey was there with me for, I believe, everything. It was my first experience, obviously, at a card featuring Michael Chandler. Something that you notice right away when dealing with Chandler is that he has a level of poise and polish with the media that is sorely lacking in, I'm going to say, literally 95% of UFC fighters. And, well, yeah, I mean, just it really is. It's something we don't have. It gives me, it gave me a feeling for a moment of what it would be like to cover, be a beat writer for, some major league stick and ball sport where athletes actually do have like media training and orientation when they bring them into the league. It was interesting. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. I don't know if I would enjoy a press conference where every single person was George St. Pierre and just had, very buttoned down, rote answers to all the questions. But that was absolutely Chandler. Obviously, rough night at the office for Iron Mike. And I rarely ask questions at pressers. Just for one thing, Morgan and Oscar usually ask what I was going to ask by the time, the mic makes it over to my seat. But I did throw out a question for Chandler. And obviously, you're not going to ask a fighter coming off a loss for a call out. So I just, told him that in Dana's post-fight interview just a few minutes before, he had said that there were great possibilities in the fact that Chandler hadn't fought really any of the UFC's current top lightweights yet. And while he was over in Bellator, like kind of looking across the aisle at the UFC, were there any guys along the way that he had, either, competitively or stylistically said, I'd like to fight that guy one day. And, it was a decent question and he gave a good answer to it, but you could see the polish and the poise just kind of like dropping off him. Like, I don't know, like Wonder Woman's armor in that shitty Wonder Woman movie that just came out. And by the end of it, he was like, as he finished answering my question, he was literally like thumping his head on the microphone, and he had turned from a superstar in the sport into, I mean, he reminded me of like a top high school quarterback who just lost the state title or something. And I just realized that I was talking to a guy on one of the worst nights of his life, and I had extended that torture by 60 seconds, and I regretted it. And that is why I will never be a good journalist.
All right.
I'm too nice.
It took a surprising turn for the personal there. Hey, got to share yourself with the people, Ben. Good work there. And a very fair question in that moment. All right,
it's a legitimate question.
Yeah, I think that's totally legitimate question.
The problem wasn't the question. The problem was just I afterwards I realized, I should have just let him go. If I hadn't picked up the mic, he would have already been gone.
I would like to say I was there, and I would like to play devil's advocate on your behalf, Ben. I thought it was a great question, and also as a person who wants to know more about Michael Chandler, one of the things about Michael Chandler I wasn't always sure about was what was real and what was kind of this veneer, right? Because he's very trained and he's very good about presenting a public self. But the question that you asked, and frankly, most of his post-fight press conference, you could tell that he had a lot of emotion to the point where his voice was cracking a lot. And I always think you can always tell what's real about a person when things are going very poorly. And so what that taught me, and even you sticking him out on that line longer, taught me was that the stuff that he might present in the public, he truly believes in that. Because we've seen plenty of people that they're one way when they're winning and they flip the script when they're losing. He at least showed to me that he has integrity in what he wants to present to the world. And I like that. And I think that's an important part of the story.
Yeah, well said. All right. So my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment comes courtesy of the confusion at the top of the heavyweight division. Jon Jones, of course, was a frequent topic of conversation in the 262 fight week, partly because Derek Lewis, being in Houston, was a guest fighter. Also because, Dana White loves to talk about Jon Jones and what's next for the heavyweight title. So I'm not surprised that Dana White is trying to frame this once again as whether or not Jones wants to fight. Yeah, just pay the man. Like, really, why are we doing this? The best talent the sport has ever seen, responsible for just buku dollars in pay-per-view buys. Pay the damn man. This should not be something that we're still talking about here, and especially when we're talking about boxing, we're laughing at boxing for not being able to get the Fury and Joshua fight together. And we're kind of being forced to see the trilogy of Wilder Fury. Like, I mean, the UFC is not doing much better when Jones and Ngannou are in the same damn promotion. So pay the men. Let's get the show on the road. All right, fellas. So now it's time for me to break out the clock. It is the speed bag. This is where I get to flex my authority on you mofos. You guys are going to have 10 seconds to answer a few questions. And Ben, I will begin with you. Make sure I got the right screen on. Good. Okay, so first question. Do you believe Katlyn Chookagian's hacked Twitter explanation?
She said it was hacked, but it looks like blacked.
Jay. oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah, there we go. I had the wrong. There you go, Jay.
Well, what color is this written in?
All right. And Kelsey.
I don't necessarily believe her, but I don't really care. Like, whatever she's into, I think she's into it. It's fine.
All right, cool. Okay, so next question, I will begin with you, Jay. Why is Stipe Miocic next for the winner of Ngannou and Lewis 2?
Like, I have to think that Stipe has something on Dana at this point. I've never seen this many automatic title rematches ever. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
All right, Kelsey.
I think he gets it because it's a combination of who Dana thinks deserve it and who agrees to Dana terms, and he does both of those things.
All right, and Ben.
I actually can't say it any better than Kelsey just did. But for what it's worth, Lewis claims the Ngannou fight isn't absolutely final yet.
Oh.
All right. Cool. So, Kelsey, you will get first dibs on the third and last question. Will you be tuning in to watch Invicta FC on Access TV this Friday?
Sure. What are those things?
Okay, and let's see. When's the clock start? Ben.
I will, as long as I don't have to sign up for another TV package to get access. I don't know if I get it. If I have to pay another $5 a month to someone else, then hell no.
All right, Jay.
I will, for one really good reason that Mike Fridley mentioned, that I believe this will be the first time we'll see TJ DeSantis on TV. I'm in.
Okay.
I'm in.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's a good answer. Okay, so now I'm going to switch the clock over to 30 seconds. And I will give myself that amount of time to answer all three questions in succession. The clock will begin after reading the first question. Do you believe Katlyn Chookagian's hacked Twitter explanation? Absolutely not. I mean, we saw tweets from like 2011 where she's calling Obama chocolate daddy and stuff. Like, hey, no one was hacking you when you were an amateur fighter. You just like the BBC. All right. So why is Stipe next for Ngannou and Lewis? I mean, he's going to fight for cheaper than Jones. And will I be tuning in to watch Invicta on Access TV? I guess I am now. I didn't know. I didn't think about TJ being on TV, but I wouldn't mind seeing it. There we go. Yeah. Oh, I got new sounds on this. I got to like play around with the app since I downloaded it on the new phone. Okay, fellas, so let's keep things pushing. Bellator is running its 259th numbered event this Friday. Cris Cyborg is defending her title against Leslie Smith. Do you think Smith lasts longer than 81 seconds this time?
I will jump on this grenade, and it isn't out of disrespect to Leslie Smith, because I like Leslie Smith. I think she's well-spoken. I personally very much enjoyed when she sat down with our friend of the show. I don't know if he's been on anyway, friend of ours, Jordan Colbert, with the High Times show that he did. I wish I was still going. Blunt Force Trauma. Anyway, Leslie Smith, very, very likable. But the last time she fought Cyborg, it was just very uncomfortable. It was back in 2016. It was in the Brazil card where Verdum got smoked by Stipe, actually. So there you go, as our Stipe connection. And she just looked out of her depth, out of her everything. Neither woman has improved since this fight. I will say that, again, with no disrespect. Cyborg's 35. Leslie Smith is coming up on 40. I think she's 39 in a couple months. And I think she will. Despite all of what I've said, I think she will survive longer than 81 seconds because Cyborg has not been walking through and smashing women in the face like she used to. She hasn't been stepping in and taking on like Faith, oh God, what was her name? Faith McMahon, whatever. Anyway, Faith Van Duyn.
Yeah.
Faith Van Duyn, when she walked up to her, kneed her in the body, and that was it. That's not the Cyborg we have now. We have the Cyborg who will methodically bludgeon you until you fall down. And I think because of that, we may get into the second round before Leslie Smith's ear explodes. So it depends on how far we go there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, the Cyborg post Amanda Nunes is a lot more patient, a lot more methodical, and systematically wants to break someone down as opposed to just going out there and just clubbing them to death. That right there gives Leslie a better chance of surviving longer than she did the first time. You know, and definitely, and let me echo again, no disrespect to Leslie. Like, I called a Tachi show with her, for she's wonderful. I love her to death. You know, someone I consider a friend. But yeah, this is just, I mean, Cris Cyborg is a destroyer of worlds. And if your name is not Amanda Nunes, it's going to be a rough go for you. But I do think she at least survives longer than she did the first time. So fellas, is there any other fight on this card that you just want to give a bit of shine to a Bellator 259?
I don't know about fight, but fighter. Brett Johns is one of the 2 or 3 best bantamweights outside the UFC right now. I'm surprised he's not in the UFC right now. I mean, you look at his record, he's really only lost to top 10, if not top 5 guys. And yet here he is in Bellator. I don't know what they're going to do with him. You know, but
Danny Sabatello isn't a joke, so that's a good match.
Danny Sabatello isn't a joke, but if John's perform, he's gonna run him over.
Yeah,
I mean, run him over in a lopsided decision, because that's what Brett Johns does. But yeah, you know, I'm excited to see what he does.
I just want to say that I'm a Cris Cyborg fan, and I'm telling you this because I like to watch her smash people. I think she's one of the best ever. And I have a small YouTube show, just less than, I think just over 1,000 subscribers. But I tell you, every time I've ever talked about Cris Cyborg, and if it's been not completely positive, she slid into those comments. I don't care if the YouTube video had 6 views. One of those was her or somebody from her team sliding into those comments. And so it's so funny to me because she's one of the best ever, but she seems to focus on the wrong things. Because here it is in our home, me and my wife, Rachel, she helps me cover combat sports. She's my editor. We do the show together. We love Cris Cyborg. We watch all of her fights, and yet she's sliding into our things to, you know, basically she's looking for reasons to be upset when they're not there. She's great. We love her. I don't know why she does that.
Cyborg will pull up on you in a second. Like, and so in Southern California, you know, I live in the Los Angeles area. I've been to random boxing matches or just media events, whatever, and Cyborg will just pull up. I mean, she's been pulling up to the Apex Center with like a promotional van parked outside.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You know, Cyborg is nuts. Like her team will be up in the comments, will be DMing you and everything. Like, yeah, like she will pull up. So everybody out there talking trash about Cyborg,
But I'm saying
you have to answer for that.
It's not trash. It's just like not completely positive. Where it's not, you know what I mean? Like even if I'm reporting something someone else said, I don't know. It's so weird to me. It's somebody.
It's funny.
Would, you You know what I mean?
I find it hilarious. I think it's so funny. Yeah, she'll run up on anybody. Jay, I know you've done a deep dive on a couple things here. Any body that you want to highlight here on this card in Bellator?
Yes, it's been a good while. It's been since before the pandemic. But Bellator is bringing over Alexander Shevchenko, who, by the way, is just a really scary lightweight that I've been watching. And he was in ACB before things got weird. He was in Pro FC before that happened. He's the kind of guy who will walk you down and he'll flying knee you in the face. Just be like, hey, I'm up here now. Check it out. He is a very exciting, always moving forward, always wanting to smash your face in guy. I mean, Alfie Davis is who he's fighting. Alfie Davis isn't a slouch or anything. He's out of London Shoot Fighters, so he's got some grappling. So maybe he could take Perez down or something. I'm interested in the style matchup to see if Shevchenko can just walk through and do what he does, because if he does, he's going to put a lot of people on notice.
All right, good. All right, so also the UFC is in action back at the Apex Center this time. Main evented with Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. I am really looking forward to this fight. This is a beautiful style matchup. So let's just take a few moments here as we wind things down on the show to give a little love to this fight. Font is the betting favorite right now, minus 130, a slight favorite.
They're now
now
110.
Okay. Do you think that's right? Should this be a pick'em fight, or do you feel one guy should be more heavily favored?
Man, based on the reason why the odds are so close is solely because of what Cody Garbrandt did to Rafael Assunção. That sticks in your memory like very few knockouts do. The slip back Kadoosh, just one of those things. Because otherwise, I think it should have been Rob. To me, I still believe Rob Font could take this fight as long as he doesn't get a clip of something. I think he's just a sharper, accurate fighter, which it's so weird to me. And maybe I'll change my mind as the week progresses, that Rob Font is older than Cody Garbrandt by like 5 years. Like Cody Garbrandt's like 29. It feels he's so much older in terms of fight mileage. He's only had 10 fights in the UFC, but he feels like an old guard guy. He feels like an old head, like he's the former champ, like not like an Arlovsky treatment, but like he was a champ such a long time ago. I mean, it was only in like 2018, and things move very fast here. I can't wait for them to throw hands, because it's almost one of those fights where if Rob Font gets sucked into a brawl, then we're going to let the chips fall where they may. And I really hope that happens, because that could be very exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot of like violence potential with this pairing. Kelsey, who do you think comes out on top?
Man, I love Cody Garbrandt in this fight, and I just love watching him fight. Probably just because I love watching him fight, because my dude, he's going to go out there and he's either going to knock somebody out or he's going to get knocked out. I watched the UFC promotional material before his last fight, and it seemed like he was making wholesale changes to his approach to what he was doing inside the octagon with his training team. And yeah, okay, they always have that in the promotional content, right? Everybody's always doing something new. But I did think he looked really, really good in his fight. I know that I know Cody right now, he's sitting there and he's thinking about the Southwest Airlines people. And he's like, man, when I get in there and those people kick me off that plane, I'm going to take that energy in there and I'm going to just destroy my dude Rob Font. So I bet that's what happens, and I like Cody Garbrandt in that fight.
He's gonna look out and see his maskless son and just get filled with rage. So I mean, this, like, Ben, would you agree with me on this one? Like, I think the question mark is which version of Cody Garbrandt shows up, and that's going to be the determining factor. Like, I'm thinking back to like that Assunção knockout was fantastic. I'm also thinking back to UFC 235 when he was in an almost identical position against Pedro Munoz, and he got out of the offense the exact same way and decided to just re-engage in a wild brawl. Like, which version do you think we see?
I think a lot of it hinges on that, but there's part of me that kind of wants to favor Font, even if we do get the smart, slightly more buttoned down Garbrandt. Funny thing about Font is, for as obviously famous as Garbrandt's absences from fighting have been, Font's been a 1 fight a year guy for a couple of years now. The weird thing about Font is he keeps improving in between fights in a way you don't normally expect of a guy in his early to mid 30s. Like, you expect a 24-year-old prospect to make huge leaps and bounds between fights. You don't expect that of a guy who's 34, but Rob Font, kind of like Kamaru Usman, he's got a jab that he simply did not have 2 years ago. And, it's the cliche that I always go back to, but there are MMA fighters and, boxers and people in any striking art who have a good jab, but for them it is a tool. It's a rangefinder. It's a rhythm disruptor. And then there are guys for whom the jab is a weapon. It breaks people's orbitals. It splits their eyebrows open. It sits them on their ass if it catches them off balance. That's the kind of jab that Font has now. And I'm interested to see if there's any version of Cody Garbrandt that can really kind of navigate and get into the distance that he wants to punch at. Font's going to be a little bit longer. And for a 5'7" guy, he fights long. Yeah, I can't wait for this. Yeah. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, this is going to be a banger right here. So let's conclude things by taking just a moment to highlight one fight on the card that stands out. I'll jump in first because I have a feeling one of y'all is going to take it before I get to say it. Felicia Spencer versus Norma Dumont. Noteworthy because depending on the whims of Amanda Nunes, this could be the final UFC featherweight female fight. So definitely want to throw that out there. I mean, if Norma Dumont wins, then I imagine they can entice Nunes to go and smoke her real quick for a fast payday. But other than that, if Spencer wins, I think this division is officially a wrap. So, gentlemen, what else catches your eye on this lineup?
The heaviest fight in UFC history is just I am on it. I mean, like, maybe we can say that Lesnar Carwin might pass that because of how much weight the two cut to get there. But both of these guys, this is a fight I highlighted a little bit earlier in my I'm Not Surprised Mr. Falcon segment. And then Ben Rothwell is now fighting Chris Barnett instead of Azhar Maskarov, which that's a whole story I don't want to get into. And not Felipe Lins, which, God, it's just a round robin for poor Ben Rothwell, who just wants to fight before he tests positive for like a 17th time. Anyway, both guys are going to walk forward and hit each other in the face, and I don't care what happens. Like, I have no dog in the fight. I mean, sure, it'd be funny to say that Chris Barnett gets in there and somehow shocks the world, but people are going to talk about him like he's a heavyweight version of Deron Winn. And that's I am so excited for the possibilities. Huggy Bears in the UFC. I said this already and I'm saying it again because I'm still surprised by it. I am so surprised, Mr. Falcons, that this fight is happening in 2021. And I right now, I believe Rothwell's about a 3-1 favorite, and that's probably fair. I mean, he's about 7 or 8 inches taller and has a pretty sizable reach. But when Huggy Bear gets up there and throws a jumping, flying kick as if he were a 300-pound Liu Kang, I am so all for it. You have no idea. So let me just say, feed me the violence, gentlemen. I just want to see fists fly until something bad happens.
That should be an interesting one there. I got to think. So you're saying like that could be the biggest, like as far as weight wise, fight in UFC history with respect to Lesnar Carwin, or I would imagine Lesnar Overeem would be in that discussion as well.
Probably, and maybe the Juan Adams Greg Hardy fight that's up there too.
Yeah. But will this mark the largest amount of body fat that has been in the octagon?
No comment.
I gotta say, I mean, a day after I just watched Juan Adams fight at super heavyweight because he weighed in at like 278 for a heavyweight fight. Are we absolutely sure that Barnett makes weight?
No, he's coming on short notice. By the way,
he's coming on a short notice. He
And his last fight was at super heavyweight.
So it could be the first super heavyweight fight in UFC history.
Second. Josh Barnett. But yes.
We're all about them Barnetts.
He would, however, should he miss weight, would officially be the first heavyweight to miss weight because Greg Hardy came heavy, but he came back and made weight later. But that's a stat, man. God, and people will be so confused by this because again, he's 5'9". Like this isn't a 6'11" Stefan Struve that packs in 260 pounds.
No, he looks like Jonathan Ivey.
Yeah, I mean,
barbecuing Barnett's. All right.
Like I said that William Knight looks like if you tried to make a human being out of bowling balls. Like Chris Barnett looks like if you tried to make a human being out of just one bowling ball.
And it sounds like we're ripping on him, but I really do love watching Chris Barnett fight because it's just heavyweights aren't supposed to do flying strikes that often and that accurate.
To see a man that big,
he looks like the Kung Fu Panda poster.
Yes,
like, to see a man that big do a tornado kick is fascinating.
and land it. This guy can move in a very impressive way, and I love big guys that can move. Phrasing.
Chookagian. All right, Kelsey. Any fight you want to highlight on this card before we wrap things up?
I just want to highlight that Dana White, you promised me for this fight, UFC 262. First of all, you promised me Nate Diaz. And when you promised me that, I was like, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was going to happen. I felt like maybe you were just trying to sell some tickets in a sell-outable way that might be accusing him of a crime. So I'm not making an accusation, but I am saying that's what I thought. And then, of course, that fight didn't happen. But then also, I was supposed to get Ronda Rousey's protege on my undercard against Jack Hermanson, right? That fight was supposed to be at UFC 262. I was actually excited about that, especially as someone who writes for page views. Thank you, Jesus. I can put this in my headline, Ronda Rousey's protege, and yet he was off the card. I think those guys got rescheduled for this upcoming fight card, and I am legitimately, beyond all the, whatever about page views, I was legitimately interested in that fight. Talk about a tough draw, right? You go in there and get handled by Derek Brunson, and now you got to fight Jack Hermanson. That's rough.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, but should be a good card overall. Is definitely some interesting matchups, some names that are worth paying attention to, especially in the strawweight division. The co-main has some serious promise for the next person to face Rose Namajunas. So that's going to do it for this edition of Unleashed. Big thanks to Kelsey McCarson for jumping on the program. You can find his work on heavy.com. Also, you see the Twitter handle right there. Give the man a follow. And yeah, catch all his work. Cool, guys. So that's Kelsey. He's Jay. You can find those two gentlemen on SureDog.com. You can catch me on the Body Lock and MMA on Point. So you know what you got to do. Stay beautiful. Stay positive. Keep your mask on unless you want to prove a point to the media in a packed arena. And stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.